The people who win in life aren't always the smartest, they're not always the strongest, and they're rarely the most emotional. In fact, many of them appear strangely calm. While everyone else is panicking, they remain focused. While everyone else is reacting, they stay still. And while everyone else is losing control, they keep moving forward. Because they learned something most people never do. A skill that quietly changes everything. How to detach emotionally from what they cannot control. And no, emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming free. Free from approval. Free from fear. Free from the emotional traps that keep most people stuck in the same place for years. But to understand why emotional detachment is so powerful, you first need to understand something uncomfortable. Most people are not living consciously. They're reacting. Most people are controlled by their emotions. Most people believe they're making rational decisions. But if you watch closely, they're reacting emotionally to almost everything. A text goes unanswered. Their mood changes. Someone criticizes them. Their confidence collapses. A stranger disagrees with them online. And suddenly, they're spending hours defending themselves in an argument that means absolutely nothing. Think about how much energy people waste every day, worrying, overthinking, defending, explaining, seeking validation, reacting to things that won't matter a week from now. The reality is harsh. Most people don't control their emotions. Their emotions control them. Fear controls their decisions. Insecurity controls their behavior. Rejection controls their self-worth. And because of that, they remain trapped. Not by circumstance, but by their own emotional reactions. Every emotional impulse pulls them away from the future they're trying to build. Have you ever felt trapped by your own emotions? Comment below if you have. I know that feeling because I used to live that way too. And then, everything that happened next changed me. But what happens when someone stops reacting? What happens when they stop giving their attention away so easily? That's where emotional detachment begins. And that's where life starts changing. The hidden power of detachment. Emotionally detached people understand something most never learn. Not everything deserves a reaction. Not every opinion matters. Not every opportunity is worth chasing. Not every conflict deserves your energy. And this realization changes everything. Because attention is one of the most valuable resources in existence. Whatever receives your attention, receives your life. Most people spend that resource carelessly, on drama, on comparison, on temporary emotions, on things they cannot control. But emotionally detached people become selective. While everyone else is arguing, they're building. While everyone else is distracted, they're focused. While everyone else is chasing approval, they're creating results. And over time, those small differences compound into completely different lives. But perhaps the greatest advantage of emotional detachment appears during life's hardest moments, because there's one experience that breaks most people and reveals who they truly are: rejection. Why rejection stops hurting them. Most suffering comes from attachment. Attachment to outcomes. Attachment to expectations. Attachment to people staying exactly as we imagined. The pain isn't always what happened. It's the gap between reality and the story we created in our minds. A relationship ends. A business fails. An opportunity disappears. And many people interpret those events as proof that something is wrong with them. But emotionally detached people see things differently. They understand rejection is information, not identity. A failed relationship doesn't make you unlovable. A failed business doesn't make you a failure. A closed door doesn't mean your future is over. It simply means reality chose a different path. And instead of resisting that reality, they adapt to it. Because their identity is not attached to outcomes. It's attached to who they are becoming. And that's why rejection hurts less. Not because they feel less, but because they cling less. And this is where many people misunderstand emotional detachment completely. They confuse control with numbness, strength with coldness. But those are not the same thing. Not even close. The dangerous misunderstanding. Many people hear the phrase emotional detachment and imagine someone emotionless, cold, disconnected, unable to care. But true emotional detachment is the opposite. Emotionally detached people still feel sadness. They still experience disappointment, love, fear, loss, heartbreak. They feel everything. The difference is, they don't become prisoners of those emotions. They observe them, process them, learn from them, and continue moving forward. Because maturity is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to function despite emotion. Anyone can stay calm when life is easy. The real test comes when everything falls apart. And in those moments, emotional control becomes one of the most valuable skills a person can possess. Because when pressure arrives, truth is revealed. And that's why emotional control is rewarded in every area of life. Why the world rewards emotional control. Look at elite performers, elite athletes, successful entrepreneurs, military leaders, negotiators, pilots, surgeons, people responsible for high-stakes decisions. What do they all have in common? The ability to remain calm under pressure, because pressure exposes weaknesses. When chaos appears, most people panic. They react emotionally. They make poor decisions. But emotionally detached people remain focused, and focus creates clarity. Clarity creates better decisions, and better decisions create better outcomes. That's why emotional control often looks like confidence, because confidence is not certainty, it's composure in uncertainty. And people naturally trust those who remain calm when everyone else loses control. But emotional detachment isn't really about winning, it's about freedom. And that's the final lesson most people spend years trying to understand. The final lesson. The goal isn't to care less. The goal is to care wisely, to stop investing emotional energy into things that don't deserve it, to stop allowing temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions, to stop giving strangers power over your peace. Because life becomes dramatically different when you learn this skill. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing rejection. You stop reacting to every inconvenience, and gradually, you reclaim ownership over your mind. The strongest people aren't those who never feel pain. They're the ones who refuse to let pain choose their direction. And eventually, that emotional freedom becomes a competitive advantage. Not because life gets easier, but because you become stronger. And maybe that's what people are actually noticing when they meet someone emotionally detached. Not coldness, not arrogance, something much deeper. Maybe that's why emotionally detached people seem different. It's not because they care less. It's because they finally learned what deserves their attention and what doesn't. They learned that peace is not found by controlling the world. It's found by controlling themselves. And in a world filled with noise, distraction, and emotional chaos, that kind of freedom becomes rare. And what is rare becomes powerful. Now you understand the power of emotional detachment, and why calm, composed people often come out on top. If you're still struggling with your emotions, don't be afraid to make a change. Start becoming the person who takes control instead of being controlled. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. If you found this video valuable, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.